Hare Krishna. So finally, we have come to the last shloka of chapter 13, titled The Nature, the Enjoyer and the Consciousness. So let's see the summary that Krishna is giving in one verse of this entire chapter. Kshetra shretragyayor evam antaram jnana chakshusha bhuta prakriti moksham cha eviduryanti te param. So here Krishna is saying that those who see with what? Jnana chakshusha, that is the eyes of knowledge. What do they see? The difference between kshetra, kshetragyayor evam antaram. Antaram, the difference between kshetra and kshetragya, the body and the knower of the body. They can also understand, he viduhu, they can also understand what? Bhuta prakriti moksham cha. They can also understand the process of liberation from the bondage in the material nature, prakriti. And yanti te param, and attain to the supreme goal. So the ones who understand the difference between the kshetra and kshetragya, the body and the knower of the body, such people, such personalities can understand how to attain liberation from the material bondage and move to the ultimate destination or the higher destination. So in this, now we have a summary, a short summary of whatever we have seen in this chapter. The purport of this 13th chapter is that one should know the distinction between the body, knower of the body and the super soul. One should recognize the process of liberation as described in the verses 8 through 12. Then one can go on to the supreme destination. Three entities we should be very clear with: soul, super soul and the body. There is no question of mixing and merging anywhere. All are individual entities. Soul and super soul, Atma, Paramatma, they are two different, distinct entities. Body is again distinct from soul and super soul. So all this can be understood by going through the process of knowledge. So elaborately we have seen the process of knowledge from Shloka number 8 to 12. So by going through this, what happens? Through going through this process of knowledge and understanding the difference and the distinct nature of soul, super soul and the material nature or the body, what happens? The person becomes eligible to move ahead and advance in spiritual life. A faithful person, now the procedure is given. Now how can we do this? It said, a faithful person should at first have some good association to hear of God and thus gradually become enlightened. This is the first thing that needs to happen in our life. Obviously, for us, we are already reading Bhagavad-gita, we have an association. But to understand that how a person can elevate, the steps are given here. So what is the first step? Good association is needed. Like-minded people coming together and discussing about Krishna, about his various glories when it comes to name, form, qualities and pastimes. So this has to be very clear. First, good association. This is the first step in Krishna consciousness. Now after that, the next is given. If one accepts a spiritual master, one can learn to distinguish between matter and spirit, and that becomes the stepping stone for further spiritual realization. The spiritual master helps. He helps by giving his instructions, he helps by sharing his realizations. And when that happens, then the disciple is able to understand the difference between the body and the spirit. A spiritual master, by various instructions, teaches his students to get free from the material concept of life. For instance, in Bhagavad-gita we find Krishna instructing Arjuna to free him from materialistic consideration. This is the greatest service that the spiritual master does. Spiritual master, he instructs the disciple in such a way that the disciple is pulled out from the material consciousness and placed at the transcendental platform of spiritual consciousness. So, disciple is expected to follow whatever the spiritual master says. If the disciple is able to do that, then without any doubt, the disciple will progress and gradually he'll come to the platform of transcendence and finally attain the ultimate destination. Because the spiritual master, along with instruction, he infuses he infuses his realization in his disciples. At the same time, he empowers his disciples to understand the transcendental subject matter. That is the power of a pure devotee. Now, a pure devotee who becomes a spiritual master. It is said that one can understand that this body is matter. It can be analyzed with its 24 elements. The body is the gross manifestation, and the subtle manifestation is the mind and psychological effects. And the symptoms of life are the interactions of these features. So we have seen this again elaborately, that this body is made up of 24 material elements, and out of which mind is also there. So in those 24 elements, we have the elements which make up the gross body, and also the elements like mind, intelligence, false ego, which make up the subtle body. So these actually belong to the category of matter only. Only difference is some are gross, some are subtle. Now, but over and above this, there is the soul, and there is also super soul. The soul and super soul are two. This material world is working by the conjunction of the soul and 24 material elements. So, everything that we see around is the product of the conjunction of the soul and the material nature. And then here it is said, one who can see the constitution of the whole material manifestation as the combination of soul and material elements, and can also see the situation of Supreme Soul, becomes eligible for transfer to the spiritual world. These things are meant for contemplation and for realization, and one should have a complete understanding of this chapter with the help of the spiritual master. So again this point is coming, that one who understands that everything around us, all the living entities around us, they are just the combination of the material elements, the 24 material elements, and the soul. And along with that, if the person is able to understand that above the soul, we have another supreme spiritual entity called the super soul. So with this understanding, what happens? With this understanding, the person realizes his original constitutional position. He realizes that how he is stuck in this material world. He realizes what super soul is doing for him. He realizes that how the material nature is manifesting all his desires. So with all these things, the person, he becomes more and more serious in devotional service. Slowly, he starts turning towards the Supreme Soul, the Paramatma. And when he turns towards the Supreme Soul completely, that is the point when he gets completely liberated from this clutches of material nature, or to be more precise, from the cycle of birth, death, old age and disease. So it's very important that when we are doing our sadhana, we understand that this sadhana is actually going to lead us to a very, very clear path. We'll get full clarity in our life with our sadhana practice, everyday sadhana practice. So with this clarity, we'll be able to get more and more enthusiasm and inspiration to practice devotional service. Because some experience is needed in life, especially in spiritual life, to keep moving all the time. Because one thing is very clear, in spiritual life, we will not be able to see things immediately. But if we are sincere in our endeavor to please Krishna and to please the spiritual master, what will happen? Slowly and steadily, by their mercy, we will start experiencing the transcendental subject matters, transcendental entities. And with that experience and realization, the person can continue. Keep on going and on and on and on till the person reaches back home, back to Godhead. So in this way, Krishna has very, very wonderfully covered these three topics. That is the nature, and then the enjoyer or the Supreme Soul, and the consciousness, which is the symptom of the soul. So nature, material nature, super soul and soul. So very nicely it is covered in this chapter. And this chapter is an eye-opener for all of us, wherein we could understand that how there are two kshetragyas in the body, that is soul and super soul, and how the material nature or the 24 material elements are completely different as compared to the spirit soul and the supreme soul. And also we understood how the supreme soul and spirit soul, they are two different entities. There is no question of merging, there is no question of being the same one identity. So in this way, Krishna has covered the entire chapter, and we have also covered the entire chapter in this video series. Now, in the next video, we'll try to see all the 35 shlokas together. Then we'll understand the entire flow of the chapter that we have seen. So let's see all this in the next video. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna